The mysterious gift. The night was quiet in the deep forest where Evan lived alone. He had no neighbors, no family close to him, and no one visited him except the birds, the river, and the wind. Most nights were calm, but this night was different. The sky shook with a strange noise, like metal scratching against metal. Evan stepped out of his small wooden house and looked up. A bright silver object was falling from the sky like a burning star. It moved too fast, too straight, too controlled to be a meteor. Then it hit the forest ground with a soft but powerful boom that shook the trees around him. Evan grabbed a flashlight and ran toward the crash site. His heart beat fast, part fear and part curiosity. He had lived alone for so long that anything unusual felt like a huge adventure. As he reached the clearing, he saw something he could never have imagined. A strange pod stood in the middle of the forest, glowing with blue lines moving across its surface like flowing water. It looked alive, as if it was breathing. The pod opened slowly, not with fire or smoke, but like a flower opening in the sunlight. Inside it, Evan saw a small infant wrapped in a silver cocoon. She did not look fully human. Her skin had a soft pale glow, and her eyes, large and gentle, were already open. Watching him quietly, Evan froze, unsure if she was dangerous or fragile. Before he could decide what to do, a tall hologram rose from the pod. The projection showed a powerful alien woman dressed in royal armor, her eyes cold and sharp as knives. The hologram spoke in a calm but emotionless voice. "This child is unwanted in my world. Perhaps she will survive in yours." Then the hologram vanished, leaving nothing but silence around Evan. The pod shook once, then broke into sparkling dust that floated into the air and disappeared as if it had never existed. Evan was left alone with the strange baby in his arms. He looked at her small face, expecting her to cry or scream, but she only blinked softly and reached out to touch his shirt. His heart softened. He was lonely, but now someone had entered his life without warning. He whispered, "What am I supposed to do with you?" The baby just made a small sound, almost like a tiny laugh. Evan carried her back to his house, still confused and still trying to understand the situation. He warmed some milk, wrapped her in a blanket, and placed her gently on his old couch. She watched everything with calm, bright eyes, as if she already understood the world around her. Evan wondered why the alien queen had sent this child to him. Why Earth? Why a lonely human in a small wooden house? He did not know the answer, but he knew one thing. He could not leave the child alone. He decided to name her Leora, a name that came to him suddenly, like a soft whisper from somewhere deep inside his heart. Leora seemed to like the sound of it because she smiled for the first time, a small glowing smile that lit the room gently. As the night grew colder, Evan placed Leora in a warm basket near his bed. The forest outside was quiet again, but something felt different. The air felt heavier, as if the forest itself was watching them. Just as Evan closed his eyes to rest, he heard a soft rustling outside. Not an animal sound, not the wind, but something slow and careful. He sat up quickly, his pulse racing. He moved toward the window and looked out. At first, he saw nothing but darkness and trees, but then, in the corner of his eye, he noticed a shadow move between the branches. Something tall, thin, and unfamiliar. It did not walk like a human or an animal. Its movements were smooth and silent. Evan stepped away from the window. His breath caught in his throat. He looked toward Leora's basket. She was awake, staring at the door as if she sensed the same presence he did. Her small body glowed faintly, a soft white light pulsing like a heartbeat. Evan whispered, "It's okay, I'm here," trying to calm her, but he was also trying to calm himself. Outside, the shadow moved again, this time closer. The wooden steps on his porch creaked under a gentle weight. Someone or something was standing right outside his door. Evan froze, unsure if he should hide, fight, or run. The house was silent, except for Leora's soft humming glow. The doorknob shook slightly, as if tested by an unseen hand, then everything went still. The shadow outside stopped moving. The forest returned to silence. But Evan knew one thing with absolute certainty. The arrival of Leora was not an accident, and whatever had been watching them tonight would return. He looked at the glowing child and whispered, "I don't know where you came from, but it seems your world is coming to." Leora blinked slowly, her light fading back to normal. Evan felt a strange mix of fear and determination. He had been alone for years, but now he had someone to protect. Someone who might change everything he understood about life, the universe, and himself. The night grew deeper, and Evan stayed awake beside Leora, because he knew this was only the beginning of a much larger story. A story that started with a falling star and a forgotten child from another world, and a lonely human who suddenly became her only guardian. The child who was not human the next morning came slowly, with pale sunlight touching the wooden walls of Evan's house. Evan had barely slept. He kept watching the door and listening to every sound from the forest outside. Leora was awake early, sitting in her basket and staring at the window as if she was waiting for something. Her small eyes glowed softly, but this time, the glow felt warm, not scared. Evan knelt beside her and whispered, "You're safe, little one, I promise." He lifted her into his arms and felt a strange calm spread through his chest. Leora placed her tiny hand on his shirt and her glow brightened just a little. Evan noticed something unusual. The moment her hand touched him, he felt less tired. As if her touch restored his energy. He did not understand it, but he also did not feel afraid of it. He simply whispered, "You're different." But that's okay. As days passed, Evan learned quickly that Leora was not like human babies. She learned to sit, crawl, and walk faster than he expected. By the time a month passed, she was already speaking simple words in soft, careful tones. But what shocked him most was how she could learn anything by watching it once. If he showed her how to stack wooden blocks, she built a full tower within minutes. If he pointed at a bird and said the word bird, she repeated it perfectly and remembered it forever. Leora was growing fast, but she was still gentle and calm. She laughed softly at small things, like falling leaves or raindrops on the window. She hummed when she was happy, and the humming created tiny lights around her like fireflies. Evan realized her glow was connected to her emotions. Bright white when she was scared, soft gold when she was happy, and pale blue when she was thinking deeply. But even with her calm nature, Evan never forgot the shadow he saw in the forest that first night. Something had been watching them, something that did not belong to Earth. And the feeling of being watched returned often, especially during the evenings. Sometimes he saw flickers of movement between the trees, as if someone was observing them from far away but never coming close. Evan tried to act normal for Leora's sake, but he kept his tools ready near the door, just in case. One afternoon, Leora wandered outside while Evan chopped wood behind the house. He kept his eyes on her, but she moved so quietly that sometimes he lost track of her for a moment. When he turned around, he saw her standing near a large tree, her hand gently touching its trunk. The bark around her palm glowed faintly, and the leaves above her rustled, though no wind was blowing. Evan rushed toward her. "What are you doing?" he asked, trying to sound calm. Leora looked up with a peaceful expression. "The tree is hurt," she said in her small clear voice. Evan blinked, surprised. "Hurt how?" he asked. She pointed at a part of the trunk where a deep crack split the wood. Then she placed both her small hands on the broken bark. A soft light spread from her fingers, weaving into the crack like glowing threads. Before Evan's eyes, the damaged part of the tree slowly repaired itself, closing gently like healing skin. Evan stepped back, stunned. "You helped it," he whispered. Leora nodded with a simple smile, as if it was the easiest thing in the world. But Evan's heart trembled. She had abilities that no human child could ever possess, abilities that could attract attention from things far more dangerous than shadows in the forest. That night, while Leora slept peacefully, Evan sat by the window with a heavy mind. He understood now why the alien queen had called her unwanted. Maybe Leora's gentle nature, her healing ability, and her fast learning had no value in a harsh alien empire. Maybe kindness was considered weakness there, but to Evan, kindness was strength. He knew he had to protect her from whatever her world wanted her to become. As he sat thinking, the forest outside grew unnaturally still. Then he heard a soft metallic clicking sound from the trees. Evan grabbed his flashlight and turned off the lamp, letting the house fall into darkness. He peeked through the window and saw something glowing faintly between the trees. Not bright like Leora's glow, but sharp and cold like the edge of a machine. Slowly, a small drone-like object moved out of the forest shadows. It hovered silently a few feet above the ground, its single red eye scanning the area. Evan's breath stopped. He knew instantly this machine was not human-made. It moved too smoothly, too quietly, and its design was too advanced. The drone floated closer to the house, its red eye glowing brighter. Evan's heart pounded. He stepped back and whispered, "Not tonight, please." Suddenly, Leora woke with a soft gasp, her body glowing bright white. She rushed to Evan, held his hand, and looked toward the window with fear. Her glow spread through the room like a shield of light. The drone paused, its red eye flickering as if confused. Then, it turned sharply and flew back into the forest, disappearing into the darkness as quickly as it had come. Evan held Leora close, feeling her trembling. "It's okay," he whispered, though he knew it wasn't okay. Whatever that machine was, it was looking for her. And if a small drone had found them, larger things would find them soon. Leora looked up at him with wide eyes. "They are coming," she whispered in a shaking voice. Evan squeezed her hand gently, "and we will face them together," he said, even though fear twisted in his chest, because now he understood something very important. Leora was not just a child from another world. She was a child her world wanted back, and Earth was no longer just a quiet home. It had become a battlefield waiting to wake up. The empire that never forgot morning arrived with a heavy sky, thick clouds blocking the sun like a warning. Evan stepped outside with Leora standing close to him, her small hand holding his tightly. Neither of them had slept well, the memory of the red-eyed drone still fresh in their minds. Evan looked toward the forest and felt a deep worry settle inside him. The drone did not feel like a random search tool, it felt like a scout. And scouts always meant one thing: a bigger force was coming. Leora stood quietly, her eyes thoughtful and sad. She had grown more in the last few days, not in size, but in awareness. She understood now that her presence on Earth had changed Evan's peaceful life. "Evan," she said softly, "I should not have come here." He knelt beside her and shook his head. "You didn't choose this, Leora. None of this is your fault." But Leora still looked troubled. "My mother will not stop," she whispered. "She will send more machines. Then soldiers." Evan felt a chill. He had always imagined aliens as scattered explorers, but Leora spoke of an empire large, powerful, and unstoppable. He lifted her chin gently. "We'll find a way," he said. "We'll stay safe." But even as he said the words, he knew safety was no longer a guarantee. Later that afternoon, Evan took Leora into town for the first time in weeks. He needed supplies, food, batteries, tools, anything to help them survive if things grew worse. Leora wore a large hooded coat to hide her glowing skin. She stayed close to Evan, watching the world around her with wide, curious eyes. Humans walking, talking, laughing, driving, living their normal lives. None of them knowing an alien child walked just a few steps away. At the small store, Evan noticed something strange. A tall man stood near the entrance, not buying anything, not looking at products, just staring. But he wasn't staring at Evan, he was staring at Leora. The moment their eyes met, Leora's glow flickered under her coat. A sign of fear, Evan gently pulled her closer, pretending nothing was wrong, but every sense in his body screamed danger. The man stepped forward and spoke in a flat, calm voice. "Where did you get the child?" he asked. Evan froze. "She's my daughter," he answered quickly, but the man's eyes did not believe him. "They're coming for her," the man whispered. "You should leave this town now." Before Evan could question him, the man walked away and disappeared into the crowd as if he had never been there. Evan rushed through the store, bought everything he needed and more. He could not shake the feeling that the man was not human at all. Maybe he was an agent from another world, or someone watching the Empire's movements. Either way, it meant the situation was much larger than a single drone in a forest. When they returned home, the sky had turned a strange color, a deep violet mixed with rolling gray clouds. The air felt heavy, almost electric. Leora stepped onto the porch and looked up with fear. "They're close," she whispered. "I can feel them." Suddenly, a deep hum filled the sky. The sound vibrated in Evan's chest, shaking the windows and rattling the trees. Birds scattered in panic, animals ran from the forest, and the air shimmered as if reality itself was bending. Evan and Leora ran outside, looking upward, and there it was, massive, dark, silent. A ship large enough to cover half the sky hovered above the forest. It did not make noise. Yet the world felt smaller under its shadow. A cold beam of blue light scanned the forest slowly, moving like a calm, searching eye. Leora grabbed Evan's arm tightly, her glow pulsing fast and frightened. "That is my mother's ship," she whispered, trembling. "She has come for me." Evan's heart pounded, but he whispered firmly, "She won't take you." But he knew the truth. This was no simple ship. It was a war carrier. A royal vessel, something that belonged to an empire that spanned galaxies. Then something unexpected happened. A second smaller ship broke away from the giant vessel and descended toward the clearing near Evan's home. Its landing was silent, but the force of its arrival bent the grass and shook the trees. Evan stepped back, pulling Leora behind him instinctively. The door of the small ship opened, revealing a tall figure, the alien queen. Her presence felt heavy, powerful, like a storm walking on two legs. Her armor shimmered with dark silver light, and her eyes were the same cold, sharp eyes from the hologram. But this time, she was real, standing on Earth. She walked forward slowly, stopping only a few steps away from Evan and Leora. Her voice was smooth but without emotion. "You raised her," she said. A human raised my discarded child. Evan stood firm. She is not discarded, he said, his voice steady despite the fear inside him. She is kind, intelligent, and brave. The queen tilted her head slightly, studying him. Kindness is weakness in my world. She replied, she cannot rule, she cannot fight, she is not fit to wear the crown. Leora stepped forward, her glow rising. I don't want your crown, she said softly. I don't want your world. The queen's eyes narrowed. You belong to my empire. She said, you will return with me. Evan stepped in front of Leora. No, he said quietly but firmly. She belongs where she is loved. The queen stared at him for a long, silent moment, her expression unreadable. Then she raised her hand, and the air around them tightened like invisible ropes. The queen whispered one cold sentence. Love cannot protect her from the war that is coming, and at that moment, the ground trembled. The sky darkened. And Evan understood, the empire had not come simply for Leora, they had come with a purpose much larger than one child. This was only the beginning of a conflict that would reach far beyond Earth, and Leora was at the center of it. The child who changed a galaxy. The ground trembled under Evan's feet as the queen's ship hovered above the forest. Leora stood behind him, her small hand gripping the back of his shirt, her glow flickering in fear. The alien queen took one step forward, and the air around them tightened again, like invisible bands slowly wrapping the world. Evan felt pressure on his chest, but he stayed standing, refusing to move aside. Step away from her, the queen commanded, her voice calm but filled with power. Evan shook his head. No, she stays with me. The queen's eyes glowed faintly. You are a human, weak and temporary. You cannot fight an empire. But Evan didn't step back. He whispered to Leora. Stay strong, I'm here. Leora took a small step forward, her glow brightening. The queen narrowed her eyes. Your light is nothing compared to the power of the royal line. But Leora wasn't listening to her mother's voice. She was focusing on Evan, on the warmth she felt when she was beside him. Her glow changed from pale white to a warm golden color that spread across the clearing like sunrise. The queen paused, surprised. That light, she whispered. It is not possible. Leora lifted her hands slowly, and the light expanded outward, wrapping Evan in a soft shield. The pressure around them broke instantly, like glass shattering. The queen stepped back in shock as the golden light continued to grow. Evan stared at Leora with wide eyes. You're protecting us? He whispered in amazement. Leora nodded, though her small body trembled from the effort. This is my strength, she said softly, not hurting, not ruling, but protecting. The queen looked at her daughter with a conflicted expression. On her world, power meant force, control, and cold authority. But Leora's power was gentle, calm, and steady. It was something the queen had never seen in her empire, something she had believed did not exist. Suddenly, the queen raised her hand, calling her soldiers. From the massive ship above, streaks of dark figures descended toward the forest, armored warriors, silent and disciplined, landing in precise formation. Evan pulled Leora close. We have to run, he whispered, but Leora shook her head. No, running will not stop them, she said. They will follow us forever. The soldiers surrounded them, but none stepped forward into the golden light. They could not. The shield pushed them back, as if a wall separated them from Leora and Evan. Even the queen could not enter the glowing circle. She stared at her daughter with rising frustration. This power, it should not exist, she said. Why does it grow in you? Leora looked at Evan, then at the queen. Because he raised me with kindness, she said softly. Kindness made me stronger, not weaker. The queen stiffened, her armor humming with tension. Her world had always taught that compassion was a defect, something to be removed or hidden. But here, on this small planet, compassion had become a force powerful enough to stop an army. The sky above them shook as the massive ship shifted position. A loud hum vibrated through the forest. The queen had activated the ship's energy cannon, a weapon capable of destroying entire landscapes. Evan's heart dropped. She's going to fire, he whispered. Leora's glow intensified. No, she said. I won't let her. She spread her hands outward, and the golden light shot upward like a pillar. It hit the underside of the ship and spread across its surface. The massive vessel flickered, its lights dimming. The humming sound stopped instantly. Panels on the ship crackled, then powered down. The ship was completely disabled, floating in the sky like a silent giant. The queen stared upward in disbelief. One child, disabling a royal warship, she whispered. This is impossible. Leora stepped forward, her glow softening into a calm white color. She looked up at her mother, not with anger, but with sadness. I don't want to fight you, she said. I don't want your soldiers to be hurt. I don't want a war. The queen looked at her silently. For the first time, her eyes held something close to emotion, not anger, not pride, but confusion. Her daughter was powerful in a way the empire had never imagined. Not through violence, but through something the queen's world rejected. The queen lowered her head slightly. Your ability, your light, comes from this human, she said in a low voice. From the way he raised you. Leora nodded. Yes, she said simply. And there are many like him here, kind and brave. The queen's soldiers waited silently, unsure of what to do. The forest remained still, the golden shield fading slowly. As Leora relaxed, Evan rested a hand on her shoulder. Proud and relieved, the queen finally spoke. I came to take you back, she said, but now I see. The child I cast away has grown into something our world cannot understand. She looked at Evan. You changed her future, she said, and perhaps, you have changed mine. Then, with a quiet gesture, she signaled her soldiers to retreat. They stepped back, disappearing into beams of light that carried them back to the ship. The queen turned one last time toward Leo. When you are ready, she said, you may visit the stars again. Not as a discarded child, but as a bridge between worlds. And with that, she walked into her ship and vanished into the sky, leaving Earth peaceful once more, leaving Evan and Leora standing alone in the clearing, safe, together, and forever changed. Evan looked at Leora and whispered, you were never unwanted. Leora smiled, her glow soft and warm. I know, she said, because you showed me. And so their story began again, not with fear, but with hope. A human and an alien child. Two lives that changed the fate of a galaxy without ever meaning to.